most disappointing season in Rutgers men's basketball history is officially over, with Rutgers losing in double overtime in as Rutgers of a way to end the season as possible, trailing by 13 points in the second half, coming all the way back behind his defense, no less, to take a 4-point lead with 36 seconds to go and cannot close out the game. Ace Bailey is out, fouling out. Jeremiah Williams misses 2 free throws, with Rutgers up 2. USC ties it. Dillon who played great in this game, did take a fadeaway air ball at the end of regulation. They go to OT. Rutgers has a chance to win it again on the final possession. Dillon deferring to Jeremiah Williams, who misses an open 3. And then they fall apart in that double overtime, losing by 8 points. USC outscoring them 16-8 in that double overtime. So many just tactical errors. I think really probably the biggest is that Desmond Claude had 4 fouls at the end of regulation, and Rutgers did not attack him in any way in the overtime sessions. He finished with a game-high 28 points, killed him from the foul line, 12 of 15, and hit a bunch of free throws in both overtimes. And just brutal loss in what was just a brutal season. And I, went into detail last night. I just think just so many missed opportunities for this team. And it just seems very appropriate that things end the way they did tonight. Just offensively, bad strategy. I said before the game, USC cannot defend the rim. Rutgers was really successful in that first game against them at the rim. They were very successful tonight. 20 of 23 at the rim. Rutgers basketball, 20 of 23 at the rim. And they lose the game. You know why? Because they only took 23 shots at the rim. They were 7 of 24 from mid-range. 7 of 24. The fact that they took 24 mid-range shots, mid to long twos, is an indictment of the offensive strategy of this program, and it has not changed. They did shoot 33s. I have no problem with that. They had a bad shooting night from 3. I have no problem with that. They were 6 of 30. A lot were in the flow of the offense. Dillon was just 1 of 8 from 3. Jeremiah was 0 of 4. Dillon Grant, Ace Bailey, 1 of 3 each. Tyson Acuff was the only one that made more than 1. He was 3 of 8. But I'm okay with 3s. At the rim, they were dominant. But they took 1 more shot from mid-range and long twos than they did at the rim. That is unacceptable. That is not smart basketball. That is not modern basketball. And that is a big reason why they lost. 7 of 24 from mid-range to long twos. 20 of 23 at the rim. They shot very well from the line, 17 to 22, but they didn't get there as much as USC did. USC had 6 fouls with like 11 minutes to go in the second half, and Rutgers didn't get into the bonus until like 4 or 5 minutes left in the game. So that was a mistake too. They just, it wasn't a smart basketball team, and they could too many times this year. They were just consistently inconsistent. Too many times this year with a chance to seal the deal. They could not do it. They could not do it either through error, mistakes, not making smart decisions, not enough effort. I mean, give this team credit. They looked dead in the water in that first half. They were down 13 early in the second half. I did not think that they had it in them to come back. It's Steve Peichel, credit to him for implementing that press. But it's also frustrating as hell. Because in the preseason, Peichel even said on this podcast and said plenty in the preseason, this team was going to run, they were going to press. And they really didn't this year. And when they did press, I get it. The half-court defense was abysmal. And it was at times in this game again. But if you're going to get beat and give up easy baskets, no matter what, at least create pressure for your opponent. At least try to wear them down some. Yes, it takes a toll on your own players, but you're playing 11 guys. we'll get more into it in the postmortem of the season. I'll have something out pretty soon. Have a lot to say, but this loss is just, it's stake through the heart with some salt on the end, a little bit of a rusty, salted, twisty knife that just in the stake of Rutgers fans. This was just, it makes sense. It makes sense that this is how it ends, and just brutal, and again, the players played hard. I thought, I feel bad for Jeremiah Williams. I know he's frustrated as hell this season. He made some big plays to get Rutgers back in this game. He hustles his ass off. He's out of control at times. He can make some big shots. He can take some really bad shots. Missing those 2 free throws down the stretch killed them. Dylan also had a 3 that they made a 2 because he said his foot was on the line. Of course, that comes back to haunt them. But again, it's having awareness on the floor. It's having awareness from your coaching staff. It's teaching things that are implemented. Somerville came up big at times in this game. But how many times have we seen him just settle for like long 2s, right? Durkak taking on a triple team. Rutgers not capitalizing and having the awareness of when their best player has 4 fouls, you go after him. I don't know what else to say. I honestly sick to my stomach. Was that just, the whole season. I've been sick to my stomach for a month now. I was optimistic through some bad losses early in the season because there was time to get it back, to make up ground. And once we got to mid-February and things weren't changing, I got more and more pessimistic. And then when it hit March, I was just honestly angry, upset, very upset, because it was obvious that things weren't going to get better. And just some of the way in which they lost, this team did have some bad no-shows at times in this season. They battled a lot too, and they just couldn't get out of their own way. Could not get out of their own way with a lack of execution, with a poor decision-making, lack of physicality, lack of identity, specifically on the defensive end. And the season's over. And the Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper era is over. And Rutgers went 15-17. So it's the most disappointing season in program history. Steve Peichel, I'll have some thoughts on what I think he has to do next. I know people are saying, he should be fired. It was an awful season for him. He had I have to imagine it's his worst season as a coach in terms of decisions he made, both in building the roster, game execution. Again, it was almost like he couldn't make decisions at times. So he compromised, and they lost their identity in the process. And, we played 11, 12 guys every game. It doesn't make sense at this level to do that. I don't think they utilized certain players well enough. Ace, to his credit, I thought overall was pretty solid in his effort all year. He obviously struggled offensively. Last 11 games of his Rutgers career does not score over 20 points. Finally broke, he was 6 of 36 coming in from the 3-point line, was 1 of 3 tonight. Dylan, up and down. Obviously, he's had some terrible luck with getting sick, with the injury. But he looked disinterested at times. The last, certain parts of the last month, I think he looked pretty disinterested. And you have to wonder what was going on. Was the chemistry more of an issue than maybe was reported? The season's over now. It didn't look like Tyson Acuff wanted to pass the ball to Ace Bailey ever. So he actually had like a one of the worst effort passes ever that got deflected. It was kind of like when he had no other choice. But just a lot of problems with this team. coaching staff could not correct it. I don't think Steve Peichel forgot how to coach. I think he did not get through to this team. I think this team was, they didn't have the toughness, the leadership, enough playmaking, enough shot making, not nearly enough defensive effort. And it ends in miserable fashion in what was a miserable season. And now Rutgers has to rebuild. I think out of respect, for this team, for the players, for the coaching staff, tomorrow is a day where they have to, take care of business in terms of ending their season. So I'll probably put something out Friday. If I can muster it tomorrow night. It's already midnight now. I got to get up in 4 hours for work. So we'll see. If not, the weekend, that'll be quite the ramble. But a lot of thoughts on what went wrong this season. But more importantly, we need to really dive into what went wrong this season to understand what needs to be fixed moving forward. And I think I started to talk about this and I rambled off. But the idea that Steve Peichel should be fired, I just go to, there's no president, there's no AD. So even if you think he deserves to get fired, he's not going to get fired. And the fact that, he's owed millions and millions of dollars on his contract through 2031. And Rutgers does not have a ton of money. So even if you wanted to fire him, do you have the money to fire him? And do you have the money to invest in a new coach that's going to be successful? That is a lot of money. And Rutgers doesn't have it. But it doesn't matter because they don't have a president or AD either. I mean, hey, it's only March 12th. Just when you think it can't get worse for Rutgers fans, it does. And that is, I think, our mantra. Long-suffering fans indeed. And just a miserable season. And it's almost surreal. But at the same time, it's not shocking because we've been in the place where this season is and was for a long time now, where it wasn't looking good since, after the start of the year, Dylan was sick. This team, missed an opportunity to 3 home games in a row, won 1. That lost in Indiana. They just a lot of missed opportunities. And it's, Steve Peichel has a lot to answer for, has a lot to, I want to see him. I want to see him take a breath and find a different approach in how he does his own post-mortem on this team. But just wrapping up in his last game in his Scarlet Knight uniform, Dylan Harper, 27 points, 9 of 21 from the floor, 1 of 8 from 3, 8 of 8 from the line, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, 5 turnovers, 2 blocks, 2 steals, 46 minutes, minus 10. He was 8 of 13 at the rim, not enough shots at the rim. The only player that was plus tonight was Ace Bailey, who did not play in the overtime sessions, was plus 9, 17 points, 7 of 13 from the floor, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, and a block. Somerville, one-eyed at times, I think. Big offensive game, 16 points, 5 boards. Did have 3 turnovers. Also, Tyson Acuff, 16 points, 5-11, hit 2 late threes, was 3 of 8, 5 boards, 4 assists, 1 turnover, 1 steal. Wow, Tyson Acuff played 40 minutes tonight. That's crazy. But other than the 4 players in double figures, Dylan Grant had 7, Jeremiah Williams had 6. Nobody else scored. Rutgers was forced 21 turnovers, had 31 points off 21 turnovers. Not enough. Still very good. They won the points off turnovers 31-7, but they were -1 on the glass. They were +5 on the offensive glass, but even 12-12 in second chance points. They only had 13 transition points. They had 26 transition points in the first meeting against USC. They just did not do enough of what they needed to do. They did not execute down the stretch, and it's over now. It's over. Don't talk to me about the crown. Please know the rebuilding has to start now. Expect players to enter the portal. And by the way, no president, no AD, no GM for hoops. I'm going to have a lot of thoughts on the GM in my next episode. But the portal's opening and you have no GM. And obviously revenue sharing is going to be accounted for, although not official. And that does give some hope in terms of Rutgers having some money. They are going to play in that Vegas tournament again. So that's $1 million in NIL. So they have some money. They have to use it wisely. Player evaluation is so important. They have to get players that are Pikel type players. The defense the best offensive team of Pikel's Rutgers tenure, and by far the worst defensive team. Not even close. Rutgers losing in double overtime. Totally appropriate for what was a miserable, brutal season with a miserable, brutal ending. I'm sorry that I can't muster more than this in terms of being poetic or make you laugh. Definitely a little more dead inside than I was yesterday. And, as longtime Rutgers fans, we take this to heart. And this program, means so much through the years, even despite the fact it's brought us more heartache than joy. And this season, when we thought we'd experience much more joy than heartache, once again, more heartache than joy, and a lot more heartache than joy. We'll break it all down soon, what it all means, where it needs to go. But for now, this team is done. There is some relief in that. And Rutgers men's basketball finishing 15-17 overall. Completely unacceptable, disappointing, horrible season. And hopefully they can go up from here. Hopefully Steve Pikel can figure it out and turn things around. Otherwise, not a lot to be hopeful for as a Rutgers men's basketball fan. Thank you to all of you that listened and watched my rapid reactions once again this season. And I'll talk to you soon here at the Scarlet Faithful podcast.